The Wildlife Trade Forum was a venue to flush out and to discuss all the issues related to wildlife trade. And ultimately, when you think about that, that has a lot of ramifications. There are customs, there's illegal trade. Is there legal trade? How does wildlife move about? How do we as people approach wildlife as a resource? But to me, as a participant, the most important core issue is, what is Dominica's future going to look like? And how is Dominica going to shape that future? The wildlife, which includes the plants and animals of this country, to me defines such a big part of this country that you have to have a working framework, a working policy for approaching it. And the decisions are yours to make. Is wildlife and our wild areas going to be utilized for financial gain? Are they going to be harvested? Are they going to be exploited? Or are they going to be protected? Can we somehow calculate the financial returns for these actions? And is it just finances that matter? Or are there intrinsic values associated with saving wildlife or not saving wildlife? These are the sorts of things that we've been talking about. And the discussions have been very, very interesting because there are professionals here with tremendous training and insight and experience, bringing that to the table from outside Dominica. You've got a lot of folks here with a long history of experience with wildlife in the country. And I would say this, the central thematic element of this workshop is that there's an awful lot to protect here. Dominica has a very, very special track record of protection. The results are very clear. The benefits are tremendous. And at the same time, the risks are very great. So if decisions on wildlife trade are to be made, they must be contemplated extremely carefully. There's an awful lot we don't know about disease. There's an awful lot we don't know about invasive species. There's an awful lot we do know. When we take all of that information together, ultimately, a policy has to decide for the country just how much you care. And that's what we're talking about. How much do you care? If you care a lot about what you have, then a policy will be very, very protective. And there will essentially be no wildlife trade. That is, no wildlife exports, no wildlife imports. If there are going to be exceptions to that, and what kind of wildlife is going to move, and under what conditions, those things need to be very, very specific, and they need to be articulated in such a way that they're clear and unambiguous, and if those regulations and policies are not followed, there is swift and certain action. This forum makes it available to the public. It puts decision makers and thinkers and public servants all together so that we know what the most important concerns are, and if a step is to be taken, that step is taken very deliberately and very carefully with the best available information. As a scientist, that's my biggest concern, is that we use the facts we have to make the best decisions we can, and we also anticipate there's a lot we don't know, and we use that humility to be protective, to be precautionary, and not to go too far, too fast, make decisions that we will very seriously regret. If I were going to make one recommendation regarding wildlife trade on Dominica, it would be to err on the side of caution and to reinforce, however you can, every protective measure you have for nature on this island. The reason I think that's the most important, and the reason that I think it's so timely and it's so urgent, is that the rest of the world is just besieged with disasters and calamities as a result of really, really bad decisions with wildlife. Wildlife is going extinct as never before. Diseases are being moved around on this planet as never before. We are seeing every day, in real time, outbreaks, zoonotics, pandemics that affect not just wildlife but people. Dominica has been exceptionally lucky to not have experienced too many of these. Your mountain chicken is the victim of one of these global pandemics. And that's a very sad story. Many of the species here are vulnerable because they're island species. It would not only break my heart, but I think it would break the spirit of this country to lose your natural diversity because it is your legacy and it is your natural heritage. To not do everything humanly possible to protect it would, in my opinion, be the most reckless thing this generation of human beings could do. And therefore, I cannot overstate the importance of being as protective as you can of the wonderful natural diversity that you have.